Fox Sports welcomes you to the following presentation of the National Football League.
There's your matchup on New Year's Day. The Saints have never gone undefeated an entire season at home. For more on their mindset today, let's go down to Pam Oliver.
Hey, Joe, I had a chance to speak to Sean Payton as the Saints prepared to come out from the locker room. He said, we have a chance to do something special, and that's to win 13 games, something we did not do our Super Bowl year. He said, so let's go out and set up something good. Let's go out and beat the Carolina Panthers. Back to you.
And that's something that hasn't been so easy to do lately, as Carolina, as Troy said in the open, has won 4 of 5. Down the stretch, the turnovers have been limited, and that is what is on the line for the Saints, if you want to say it, but they need big help. And they don't expect to get it from St. Louis at home beating San Francisco. However, the last team to beat the Saints, the St. Louis Rams, on the 30th of October, and it's hard to believe that even happened at some point.
Well, we've seen a lot of strange things over the years happen in week 17, so I wouldn't necessarily rule anything out. What is remarkable about the New Orleans Saints is here's a team that could win 13 games this year and not have a first-round bye. It's rare that that happens.
It's because of the job that Jim Harbaugh has done in San Francisco, what they've done defensively. The turnover differential is unbelievable for the 49ers at this point in the season. I believe they're plus 26, leading the NFL, so they don't turn it over. They pick up a lot of takeaways. And then, of course, there's Green Bay, and it'll be interesting to see how they get along in their game today against Detroit and how much Matt Flynn plays, the guy who's playing to open some eyes and a free agent to be next year. And as I say that, I look over to the right, and there's Troy with the Green Bay-Detroit game on in the corner of his monitor. You're going to watch it for us all day.
I'll keep you up to date.
Hey, thanks.
No game breaks from Kurt.
No, they're all going to come from old 8 ball. Off we go as Olindo Mare rips it through the back of the end zone. Darren Sproles, who today could set an all-purpose yardage record in the NFL, we'll watch it go past him. Here's the offensive line, and you got 3 Pro Bowlers protecting Drew Brees. And Jimmy Graham has become one of the big weapons, not just in the NFL this year, but in the last handful of years at tight end for Brees.
I still think back to last year and talking with Sean Payton early in that season, and he said that years from now we'll look back on the 2010 draft and see that Jimmy Graham was a real steal in the 3rd round.
They start the day with a run, and they hand it off to Pierre Thomas. Jordan Sen on the tackle for Carolina. And now we look at the group that is coordinated by Sean McDermott. He and Ron Rivera together under Jim Johnson in Philadelphia. And the injuries hit that linebacker group hard early this season.
Yeah, it sure has. And that was the start of a lot of injuries on that defensive side of the ball. Constant adjustments by defensive coordinator Sean McDermott.
Here's one wide open, caught. Colston with a catch. They're going to mark him out of bounds at the 43, 18 yards from Drew Brees.
You know, they'll play zone coverage here, and you see that Marcus Colston, he's able to get in that void right beyond the corner in front of the safety, out on the sideline with time to throw. And in today's game, I mean, certainly we know Drew Brees he's going to find the open guy, but looking around at all the great play at quarterback this year, to a man, quarterbacks will say when defenses play zone, we can pick it apart.
Here's a screen. That's Pierre Thomas. This is a very good screen team. Tackle made downfield at the 35 by Sen, a gain of 22.
You know, the Saints do such a good job of running a lot of different types of screens from different formations, different personnel groupings. Here they come in on 2nd down or on the 2nd play of the game, and they're able to run the screen pass on this play, set up very nicely with some blockers out in front.
From the 35, this is Ivory. Ivory breaks loose, and what a start for this New Orleans offense. Touchdown, no flags.
going to see Jari Evans is going to pull around, and he makes the key block that kind of opens it up for him. But they just mauled the Carolina Panthers along that defensive line and were able to give just enough space to Chris Ivory for that touchdown. Nice execution, excellent drive to start this game.
Talk about that offensive line. Nix and Evans, the guards, both Pro Bowlers, former college tackles. They have developed into about the best guard tandem you'll find anywhere, certainly in the NFC, maybe the NFL. Ivory, 35 yards for the touchdown. 7-0 New Orleans. Well, how about that little start for the Saints? They can make it look easy, and there are so many records on the line for New Orleans. A big reason why they are going all out here, at least at the start. Talk about those records as we get into this game, and now we're about to see touchback number 63 off the foot of Morstead, an NFL record he continues to add to. Here comes a guy I know you were impressed sitting down with yesterday, Cam Newton.
Yeah, impressed, one, by just his physical size. I mean, until you've actually stood next to this young man, you don't realize that he's as big and as imposing as he is. He's 6'5", 250 pounds. In fact, Sean Payton talked about it. The last time these two teams met, he went to the 50-yard line, and he just watched him, and he was a little bit mesmerized by the physical presence of this guy as well.
6'5", 248 under center. And he keeps it on a play action, drops it off to Shockey, the former Saint. And he'll start with 6 yards off the left side. Jordan on the tackle for New Orleans. And we'll look at this offensive line with a Pro Bowl in the middle, Khalil, and then the backs and receivers. And Steve Smith has regained the title of the best Steve Smith in the NFL.
Yeah, he sure has. It's been a tough couple of years for Steve Smith, but I'll get into it a little bit later, but it's not always a real welcome thing when you're an 11-year veteran and they're bringing in a rookie quarterback that's going to learn on your watch.
Handoff is to Stewart, and Stewart's got a first down for Carolina. Run game is so good for the Panthers. They have the best yards per carry average in the NFL. Up front defensively, they have the rookie starting, and Jordan there, the linebackers, as they deactivate Vilma today. He's been battling that bad knee, so Dunbar's in the middle. Fake it to Stewart. And Newton shows off his arm and finds Smith. Smith is out of bounds at the 49 with a 17-yard completion from Cam Newton.
Well, this is some of the stuff by Cam Newton that we've seen throughout the year. First of all, off of the play action, because they have run the ball so well, it slows down the pass rush. He has time, but he delivers a good ball. And at times his accuracy has been in question, but overall this year, 60% passer, for a young player playing in this league is really nice, and they haven't all been short throws either. I've been overly impressed, and I know I speak for a lot of others that never anticipated him coming into this league doing the things that he's done.
Penalty flag flies as Stewart carries it over the left side. He is dragged down by Abdul Kadus. A 5-yard gain. Will check the flag.
The Eagle formation offense, number 80, was covered by the wide receiver. 5-yard penalty. Repeat first down.
That was Shockey who covered up Brandon LaFell, and there's Ron Rivera, who interviewed 9 times for a head coaching position. His time finally came, and he seems like the right pick for the Panthers.
Well, he does at this time, and I've always been a big fan of Ron Rivera going back to when he was with the Chicago Bears, of course, coming over after being defensive coordinator in San Diego. And by any measurement, any way you want to look at this year, he has done a fantastic job.
Breaking in a rookie quarterback. They had only 2 wins all of last year. There goes Newton. And Cam Newton has a first down. He picked up 16 yards, and Cam Newton, who wears number 1 and who has had a record-setting rookie year, as a rushing first down.
You know, if I've seen one thing from Cam Newton, at times he tends to get locked in on receivers. He could have come underneath to the crossing route and got the ball out of his hand. He does not look to run. You know, a lot of quarterbacks with his kind of ability will be quick to run. He still looks down the field, wants to throw the ball, but boy, he's exciting once he tucks it and goes.
Now they're in the Wildcat formation. They fake the handoff, and Williams keeps it. And D'Angelo Williams gets 5. It was such a fad last year. We've seen less and less of it this season around the NFL. D'Angelo Williams, part of that 1-2 punch in the backfield for Carolina with Jonathan Stewart.
Yeah, it's quite a tandem, and now it's become a trio because of Cam Newton. So when you've got D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, who are already splitting carries over the years, they've had to sacrifice even more with some of the carries that now go to Cam Newton.
Fake an option. Newton completes it for a first down to Shockey, and a nice catch as he was led by Cam Newton. That's a 6-yard gain.
You know, that's one of those plays that, in talking with Rob Chudzinski, you know, it's been a little bit of a work in progress because some of the things that they do offensively is outside the box from what he is accustomed to doing in his background. And he said it's been fun. It's been exciting. I get in there each week and draw up a few different looks. And I think we just saw one.
Chudzinski, who was Shockey's position coach at the University of Miami. Now together again in Carolina. Here is Williams. And D'Angelo Williams is tripped up by Dunbar, a gain of 2.
You know, Shockey, he's got a little history here playing in New Orleans. Of course, also with Sean Payton, going back to when he came into the league as a rookie. Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants. In fact, Sean said that he heard from Shockey this week. He called him, and his mother is in attendance at the game. He couldn't get good seats through Carolina and asked Sean if he could afford him a couple tickets for his mom and family.
Shockey was here 08 through 2010. 2nd and 8, and this one is just thrown away. And they're going to throw a flag right at the line of scrimmage.
Holding defense, number 53. The 5-yard penalty and an automatic first down.
It's backup linebacker Ramon Humber.
Yeah, you're going to see Humber. He comes up. D'Angelo Williams, they're trying to run the screen pass, and as he's trying to get out, Humber recognizes what's before him, and he grabs him, and a pretty easy call.
Defensive coordinator Greg Williams told us earlier in the year he's trying to invent defenses to get Humber out on the field because he likes the way he covers. He likes what he's done, a free agent out of North Dakota State. Even Greg Williams, his name is coming up in NFL circles for a potential head coaching position. There are going to be a lot of jobs open. Again, back to the Wildcat formation. Williams keeps it. And D'Angelo Williams is going to get 9. 2nd down and 1, and now an impressive drive being put together by Carolina. And they have mixed it up, as Chudzinski, the offensive coordinator, has done game to game now. He has been opening up the playbook and going to the back pages, trying to find different ways to keep the defense off balance. It's 2nd and 1. They've run it 5 times. They've thrown it 8 times on this drive. Now an option look. Not much, but enough for a first down. Humber on the tackle.
Well, as we've seen, and certainly Carolina Panthers fans have seen it throughout the year, the different things, the creative things they do within the running game. There's a tendency when you look at this offense. I mean, this offense last year was, to be kind, was not very good. And now you look and see how productive they've been. Almost 400 yards a game on average is nice, and it's not all about running, although they're outstanding at that. They do still get the big plays down the field with the pass.
Newton keeps it. And now over the middle, throws behind Williams. And just to give you the numbers, this is an offense that last year was averaging just over 12 points per game. Worst in the NFL. I mean, worst by a long stretch. This year they're up to 5th, averaging basically 26 points per game.
Joe, last year, the entire season, they had 16 offensive touchdowns. This year they have 45. To do that, I mean, to do that with a rookie quarterback with no offseason, I just can't say enough good things for the job this entire staff, particularly offensive coordinator Kaczynski.
Newton's going to flip it to the corner, and he gets Smith for the touchdown. Working on Jabari Greer, and Steve Smith has his 7th touchdown of the year.
Well, you see, he gets the outside release, and then Cam Newton, he just places the ball beautifully. And so as soon as Smith clears Jabari Greer, the ball is there.
That puts Steve Smith 1 catch shy of Muhsin Muhammad to tie him for the most receptions in Panther history. This one's good for a 12-yard touchdown. The Saints went down the field quickly and scored, and the Carolina Panthers, led by the rookie Cam Newton, with a beautiful throw for the touchdown to Smith. All smiles for number 1, tied at 7. Well, St. Louis gets a touchdown. At home, they lead San Francisco. Right now, San Francisco, the number 2 seed. That's big, obviously, because it comes with a first-round bye. That opportunity could be out there for the Saints to switch spots if they win and the 49ers lose in St. Louis. Sproles will take it out. And he gets popped as he got to the 15, out to the 17-yard line by Josh Vaughn. Take a break, come back. Number 9 in the huddle when we return. Little tailgating at the stadium here, and I'm going to say a few snooze buttons were hit this morning when an alarm went off around the New Orleans area after New Year's Eve.
Well, we were at Tommy's restaurant last night, Drago's, and I got to tell you, it was some of the best food I've ever had in my life. And the oysters, grilled oysters, even if you're not an oyster eater, you'd love some of the things that he's serving there.
The oysters for you next time. Breeze throws, and off the right hand of Colston, incomplete. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the records. You know about Drew Brees breaking the record last week in the game against Atlanta. He's now that much farther in front with what he's done so far of Dan Marino. And then there's Brady, who's right on the heels of Drew Brees, rather. As the handoff goes to Ivory, who already has a touchdown run, and he's running hard. Picks up 11 and a Saints first down.
I think what's interesting when you talk about this record by Drew Brees, obviously a tremendous accomplishment. He's got Tom Brady right on his heels. Well, in all likelihood today, Tom Brady will also surpass the previous record by Dan Marino, but there won't be the fanfare that Drew Brees enjoyed last Monday night. And I guess that's a little bit disappointing, but there's a chance. I mean, he could bypass Drew Brees based on obviously what happens here in this last game of the year.
Here's a toss to Ivory, running to the left side. He gets brought down from behind. Brady and the Patriots are 12-3 and playing at home against Buffalo. And so that's the main record that got all the fanfare during the week, but also on the line here today, the New Orleans offense is going for the all-time yardage record as they trail the 2000 Rams. That's attainable. Jimmy Graham for receiving yardage by a tight end. Record held by Winslow. He's right there, but Rob Gronkowski's actually ahead of him at the start of the day, and then Sproles for the all-purpose yardage record. It's all out there here in Week 17. Nice catch by Adrian Arrington. seldom used wide receiver, but getting a chance. That's only his second catch all year.
And they were really looking forward to watching Adrian Arrington in this game. They like him a lot. They say he reminds them of Marcus Colston as far as his skill sets. He's a big guy. He's got strong hands, very smart, knows all of the wide receiver positions, and that's valuable so they can line him up in a lot of places. The only reason he has not gotten more playing time is because they've got so many guys. It's just been hard to get him on the field.
Delayed handoff to Sproles. How about his year? How about 11 yards for Darren Sproles, and you can make the case as he's slow to get up. But of all the free agent signings, maybe Babin in Philadelphia, but this guy, at least offensively, has got to be the most impactful of anybody from this past offseason.
Oh, I would agree. I think the only other player that I can think of that was as impactful was Jason Babin, the defensive end there in Philadelphia, which he has 18, 19 sacks. But Darren Sproles, I mean, he was a productive player in San Diego. That team did not want to lose him. But Sean Payton has integrated him so well into what they're doing here in New Orleans. It's been fantastic.
He limps off the field, as wide open as Colston. And now the Saints have run 10 plays, and 7 have been for 10 or more yards.
You talk about spreading the ball around and keeping guys happy. I'm amazed at the way the Saints have been able to do that.
Colston now over 1,000 yards for the season for the 5th time here with the Saints. That's a franchise record. Here Thomas fights inside the 15. Gamble on the stop. And just to back you up, 7 players in this offense with 30 or more catches. Drew Brees is the only quarterback that's been able to accomplish that around the NFL.
And like I said, even a guy like Adrian Arrington, I mean, he hasn't gotten involved because he hasn't been able to get onto the field.
There's no flag for here Thomas getting his helmet pulled off at the end of that play. This one's dropped over the middle and batted up into the air. But Thomas, the intended receiver, Demario Presley, who was just added to the active roster for Carolina, got a hand on it.
I think in addition to the production that we've seen this year from New Orleans, both pass as well as run, in addition to that, it's a well-coached, disciplined team. They don't turn the ball over either. You know, I mean, they're very good in not beating themselves. So that combined with the fact they don't make a lot of mistakes, it's no wonder here they're looking at trying to get their 13th win here today.
Special.
First 3rd down of the game. End zone. Colston. Touchdown.
You see James Anderson right here. He's the guy who's trying to get underneath this throw, and Drew Brees purposely throws it away from him, more or less on the back shoulder, because that's the only space he had in the defense to fit a ball. And then, like we've seen so many times, Marcus Colston adjusts to the throw, anticipates an adjustment, and makes the touchdown reception.
A 15-yard touchdown for Marcus Colston. That's his 7th of the year. You don't know where they're going to get you. Whether it's Colston or Meacham or Sproles or Thomas, they just keep coming. Brees has got another, up by 7. As we welcome you back on New Year's Day, the aerial coverage is brought to you by DirecTV. A little bit foggy this morning. I wasn't, but the New Orleans area was.
Hey, I wasn't either. Don't give me that look.
Hey, nobody in the world knew that I gave
just look like this all the time.
Thanks, LeVar Arrington. Little pop-up kick and a chance to return one by Polaris. Can't make the 20. Junior Gillette on the stop. Got a little shootout. And Cam Newton and the Panthers keep up with Drew Brees and the Saints up by 7. You look at the list of most points at home in a single season all time. The Rams did it in a dome. The Saints have now passed him. here in New Orleans, and one record after another continues to fall. What a combination with Sean Payton and Drew Brees in their 6 years together. Newton is in trouble, doesn't go down as Jordan can't get him to the ground, and he throws it away, avoids a sack at 2nd and 10.
He's kind of pushed Cameron Jordan away. He had no chance. I mean, Cameron Jordan is 290 pounds. He's coming up to try to make the tackle, and Cam Newton just says, get out of here.
And Jordan still can't believe it.
They're not used to that. They're used to quarterbacks being a little bit easier to get to the ground.
Rookie doesn't have a sack. First round pick out of Cal. This has been a Saints team that has not been registering many sacks of late. Here's Smith. That ties him with Muhsin Muhammad for all-time catches with the Panthers, and he fights for a first down. Bad tackling by this secondary for the Saints, and now they start to rough it up. And Smith is feisty now, and he was feisty early as he talks to Sean Payton on his way back to the huddle. Got in the face of Porter and then got decked by Roman Harper. Was in for the touchdown. And then just a moment ago you saw what I saw with a little word for Sean Payton on his way back.
Well, he's a guy from the time he came into this league in 2001. He's played with a chip on his shoulder, and he's never lost that.
They fake a toss and hand to D'Angelo Williams. And Williams is out to the 45. A 13-yard run, and they start to shove and push and fight again. They're going to have to start throwing some flags to calm some of this down. But none are thrown as we're under a minute and a half left in the quarter.
You know, we talked about Steve Smith a little bit earlier and having to play with a rookie quarterback, and what he said to me was, you know, playing with a rookie quarterback is the least of my worries based on the things that had been going on the previous couple of years. He's been really frustrated. He says this is about as optimistic as he's ever been looking forward based on the year they've had this season.
Looked like a flinch or a false start, no flag, and Stewart has a 14-yard run over the left side. Game break. Here's Kurt.
Well, everybody knows how important the 49ers-Rams game is to the Saints. Alex Smith scrambling, slips, gets back up, and runs it in for an 8-yard touchdown. That ties the score at 7 apiece. Right now in the first quarter, a couple seconds left. Joe, Troy, Pam.
So Alex Smith, who has had a rebirth under Jim Harbaugh with that 8-yard touchdown run. They're tied in St. Louis all day for Newton. Flushed out to his right, and he's brought down by Jordan. He missed him earlier. He does not miss him now.
Well, they wanted to go to Steve Smith in the middle of the field, about an 18-20-yard curl route, but you see they get underneath it with Herring, and it forces Cam Newton at the last minute to have to scramble, and then Jordan was there to make the play. This time it's still not easy.
This Saints offense, and now the officials are huddling up. Didn't see a flag on the ground as Ed Hockley, and now they're going to throw it.
Personal foul, horse collar by the defense. He had the quarterback with his shoulder pad, and he pulled him back. The fact that he didn't get him to the ground doesn't change the fact that it is a personal foul. 15-yard penalty, first down.
It's my understanding on the rule, Joe, that when you go inside the collar like that, you've got to bring him, right back. That didn't happen, but I'm not about to question it. I don't want the wrath of Mike Pereira.
No, no.
But it sure seemed to me like even though he got inside the jersey, that the let up right there, not bringing him to the ground, I didn't see that as being the horse collar.
I didn't either, but we'll hear from Mike Pereira. 14-7 after 1. Back after this from your local Fox station. Ball is at the 31 after that personal foul on Cameron Jordan for what they called a horse collar. We're going to hear from Mike Pereira. Big play. Eliminates the sack. And the team down by 7 has a fresh set. Back to the Wildcat. We've seen a lot of that today as D'Angelo Williams bounces off Dunbar and takes it down near the 11. Let's listen to Mike Pereira and maybe peek in at what suit he's wearing today. Mike, was that a good call on that horse collar tackle?
Well, actually now, Joe, the rule says is you don't have to pull the player to the ground, but if you grab the collar and his knees buckle, then that's still to be considered a horse collar. I don't think they do here. I think if they had a chance to do this again, they wouldn't call this, but player safety-wise, they lean so much to call on this penalty that I'm sure that's what they did.
Thank you, Mike. Cam Newton in the shotgun. And now a handoff to Stewart down to the 4.
Right now, we've seen this Carolina offense, both these offenses, really, when they've gotten the ball, they've moved it right down the field. But Carolina's creating some big seams within this running game. You know, this New Orleans Saints defense, they have struggled. And when they play good offenses, they have given up a lot of yards. 469 yards last week on Monday night to the Falcons. 4 of the last 6 games, they've given up over 460 yards.
Second down and 2. Newton flips it, and he is no call yet. Is he intercepted? Was he out of bounds? Intercepted, touchback. Let's take another look. As Robinson, did he get both feet down?
That's really a great job. You know, you see him go up, and like a receiver, he has the presence of mind of knowing that he's attempting to come down. He's near the goal line, the back line, and he gets his feet down, and that was just a ball that floated on Cam Newton.
Interception number 4 for Robinson. What an athletic feat. 14-7. Well, one thing Cam Newton's been able to do is limit the giveaways, limit the interceptions. And as the Panthers have won 4 of their last 5 and averaged 33 points a game during that stretch, Panthers have been +7 in the turnover ratio. Here he gives one up, knocking on the door of the end zone. And so the Saints take over. That one's batted down, and at last chance, last look, they were tied in St. Louis. Let's go for a game break. Here's Kurt.
Well, Joe, they're not tied anymore. San Francisco has taken the lead as Alex Smith hooks up with Michael Crabtree. He takes it in from 28 yards away, and right now, San Francisco up 14-7 early in the second quarter.
All right, Kurt, thanks. Well, only thing left for St. Louis if they lose that game is, do they end up with the number 1 pick or the number 2 pick? As Pierre Thomas runs into a bunch of bodies, picks up 3, and we go back to that Cam Newton interception.
Well, you're going to see Cam Newton, first of all, he's going to show that it's a quarterback draw and then come up and try to run the jump pass. And as he throws it, just a miscommunication, obviously, between he and Steve Smith. He's going to run across that back line, and Cam Newton just lobs it up as though he was going to go up and try to make a play. That's obviously not the type of ball that you're going to throw to Steve Smith. He's not a tall player who's going to go up and challenge for that type of throw. And other than getting his feet down, it was a relatively easy interception for Patrick Robinson.
Now 3rd down and 7. Breeze wide open is Colston. They keep forgetting about number 12. And Marcus Colston gets 21.
Well, Pierre Thomas comes across the formation and does a nice job of picking up the blitzer that then gave Drew Brees the protection that he needed, and Marcus Colston is able to run a good route. Nobody there in coverage. They're looked initially like they were they're in a man coverage, but because of the combination route there on the outside, it's somewhat of a natural pick, and it freed Marcus Colston up along that sideline.
Colston's already got 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Play action from Breeze, and now out of the backfield, it's Thomas. Here, Thomas is bottled up by Jordan Sen, a gain of 4. We haven't seen Darren Sproles since he hobbled off the last time the Saints had the ball.
No, he was one of those guys, along with Jimmy Graham, that, you know, when you talk about going into this game, yeah, we want to win, but we want to protect our guys. They can't afford, obviously, to lose Drew Brees, but Jimmy Graham fits into that category. Darren Sproles certainly fits into that category. On the defensive side of the ball, it would be Malcolm Jenkins, Vilma as well, but he's not playing today anyway.
Here's Ivory. Ivory's had a nice start to this game, and he fights his way right to the marker. Depends on the spot. Sproles looks to be okay as he's just up on the sideline, and you talked about it either in or on camera or one of our rehearsals when he talked about how they lost 3 players in week 17 last year in a similar situation, didn't have big guys like Jimmy Graham for that wild card loss at Seattle.
No, and so in a lot of ways you think that maybe scare you off. They think the injuries came about because they really weren't all in when they went into that game against Tampa.
First down, New Orleans. Ivory picks it up as he gets 4.
This Chris Ivory, you know, for a guy who led the team in rushing last year with over 700 yards, and then he's been a healthy scratch for a number of weeks while Mark Ingram was down, and then when he was healthy, but now that Ingram's been down, he's been getting his opportunities to play. And you know, they've shown the depth that they have at the running back position, and if they can get Ingram back as they go into the playoffs, that's going to be huge for this offense.
Play action from Breeze over the middle. It's Pierre Thomas, and he is wrestled down inside the 35, just inches short of a first down. On Friday, this Friday, it's one of the most anticipated bowl games of the season, as 8th-ranked Kansas State takes on number 6 Arkansas, the only Big 12 SEC showdown. Our exclusive coverage of the 76th Cotton Bowl Classic live from Cowboys Stadium begins Friday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, only on Fox. Now 2nd down and 1. Breeze throws on the run. Micha to the 20. And 3rd down is just no problem for Drew Brees. By far the top-rated quarterback in the NFL on 3rd down.
Well, they're number 1 in the league overall on 3rd down, and there's a chance they could establish an NFL record in that category as well. But you know, they sure make it look easy. You know, the different things, and what's made it different for them this year has been their ability to run the football. They didn't run the ball nearly this well last season.
Back to Ivory. And hands on him as Stanford got there first, a gain of 1.
So you think about it and you say, okay, we've got a quarterback who just broke the single season passing record, over 5,000 yards, and we have a running game that's in the top 10. And the only way that then can happen is to get an awful lot of offensive snaps, and that's just the case. They get more snaps. They have had more offensive snaps than anybody in football. They're averaging about 70 offensive snaps a game.
Darren Sproles back in the game, and Breeze goes to him, and he's picked off. That's Stanford back the other way. Down the sideline. R.J. Stanford is shoved out of bounds just outside the 35 at the 36. And it was Bushrod, the Pro Bowl tackle, hustling to save a touchdown.
I think Drew Brees got confused, and that doesn't happen very often because Sproles is going to come out of the backfield here, and I think Drew thinks that they're in man coverage, and so he goes to throw it to Sproles, and then you've got him sitting right out there on the boundary and able to undercut that pretty easily. Well, it's rare that you see Drew Brees get confused like that, and you know, not that he doesn't throw interceptions, he certainly does, but when you just don't see a guy who's standing out there, looked like it was intended for him.
R.J. Stanford gets his first interception, playing in place of the injured Captain Munnerlyn, who is on IR. Here is Smith. inside the 35. Shanley on the tackle, a gain of just 1.
Well, that got things pretty interesting with Cam Newton throwing a red zone interception that eliminated points, and then New Orleans being in a position to come away with some points of their own. They get the interception back, and now here Carolina is marching again.
And facing 2nd down and 9. Handoff to Stewart. Jonathan Stewart's got another Carolina 1st down. A gain of 11. Shanley on the tackle.
This offensive line, Travell Wharton, of course, Ryan Khalil, you mentioned it earlier, Joe, is what, 3rd straight Pro Bowl, and he's had an excellent season. Again, we'll be going back to Hawaii, but they're manhandling this New Orleans defensive front.
First down, Carolina. It is Stewart over the left side, and this time the defensive front stands up for New Orleans. When you look, Troy, at the top 3 teams, you could make the case. The Patriots in the AFC, the Steelers obviously on that list, the Ravens, they're still fighting. And this has gone on since the opening kickoff for the most part. As Byron Bell comes out of there without his helmet, but you've got 3 of, let's say, the top teams that defensively are giving up passing yardage, the likes of which we haven't seen in the league in a long time. I mean, they're record-setting the wrong way for teams like New England, Green Bay, the Saints team. There could be some serious shootouts in the postseason.
Well, New England is the worst defense that I've ever seen amongst a playoff caliber team.
2nd down and 9. Newton flips it, end zone, pass incomplete. And it was Olsen, the tight end, downfield, being covered by Harper. And a lot of hand checking all the way down the field.
Yeah, it sure was. In fact, from here, I actually thought there should have been pass interference. And yeah, I still think there should have been. Roman Harper came in with his right hand right at the end here, got a hold of him, was tackling him before the ball had arrived. They had an official right there on top of it. I was surprised that we didn't see the flag come out.
Instead, it's 3rd down and 9, and Olsen needs help to get off the field. So with that timeout, we'll take a break. Big 3rd down coming up for the Panthers as they trail by 7. Olsen is up and ready to come back in, it appears, if they need him, but that's going to happen only if they convert on a 3rd down and 9. This will be the first Carolina 3rd down of the game.
Yeah, Olsen's still shaking his head, wondering why he didn't get that pass interference call.
Newton, incomplete. Shockey comes away with his hands up, wondering where the rookie was throwing it. It's 4th down.
Well, there really wasn't anywhere for him to throw it. You know, I mean, you got Jeremy Shockey, who's trying to get to the middle of the field, but it was just really good coverage underneath. And so, you know, Cam Newton tried to just maybe put it somewhere where he could make an adjustment. But a good job there by the New Orleans Saints. They've been very good this year. Haven't been good in many areas defensively, but they've been very good getting off the field on 3rd down.
41-yard try by Mara. And the former Saint makes it a 4-point game. It is 14-10 in New Orleans, under 6 to play in the first half. Back in New Orleans on New Year's Day, 14-10 game with under 6 to play in the first half. Steve Smith in that conversation with the rookie quarterback Cam Newton as the Panthers are about to kick it back to the Saints. And Sproles will back out of the end zone as we welcome you inside our broadcast booth. And now the Saints officially are past the St. Louis Rams in total yards for their offense, breaking the former record held by the 2000 St. Louis Rams. And the records just keep falling for this great offense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's easy to point to Drew Brees, and you should, but it's just such a great marriage between he and Sean Payton. Think about it. They both came in the same year. They've been together 6 seasons now, and they've been doing great work together really from the first day they got here.
Here's Ivory. Ivory for 3, maybe 4 as he goes forward at the end. Pierce at the end of it made the stop.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, when they came in 06 and to try to turn around this franchise, and they went on that year and made it to the NFC Championship game. And there's been a lot of great moments here in New Orleans that have involved this Saints football team ever since those two arrived.
They've now been together for exactly 100 games, Brees and Payton, including the playoffs. As Sproles gets it out of the backfield, a blocker in front of him out across the 40. 17 yards for Darren Sproles. They'll mark him at the 40, and the good block by De La Puente, the center, who got out in front of it.
I thought it was interesting last night in talking with Ron Rivera, the head coach for the Panthers, and he said, one of the things that we need on offense is a scat back type like Darren Sproles. Well, good luck. I mean, those guys are just not around. I mean, this guy is so versatile. They're able to use him in so many ways. You saw a great play there by him.
Brees is flushed out to his right and throws it in the direction of Colston. That'll bring up 2nd down and 10. And we'll show you why Colston did not get open.
Usually hard to get open when you get held like that. About the only way you can slow these guys down. But I think for the Panthers, this is and Ron Rivera said as much, that they've done so well here over the last 4 or 5 ball games. It's a good test for them against a team that's still playing their starters and wants to win the game.
Here's Pierre Thomas bouncing it out to the right side and getting a 1st down, and not going down easily. The combo of Thomas and Ivory, that one good for 15.
Well, just excellent blocking up front. Jimmy Graham, who's had himself an all-pro season, shows you that he's not just a receiver. Number 80 there, and the job that he does on the point, he continues to stay with it, does a good job on Stanford, and allows Pierre Thomas to pick up a nice gain.
So far, Graham has not been thrown to in this game. Here's one for the sideline. That's Henderson. And Devery Henderson out of bounds with a 1st down to the 28. 17 yards again.
Chris Gamble.
There's another record that just fell, by the way. Completions in a season now with 451, breaking the Peyton Manning record in 2010. Hand off to Sproles. And we'll take a game break and go to Kurt.
Remember, New England was down 21-0. Forget about it. They're still trailing, but after the Aaron Hernandez touchdown, it's now 21-14. I guess maybe the Patriots just wanted to make it interesting. They win. They're the number 1 seed, regardless of what happens anywhere else. Joe? Troy?
All right, Kurt, so we'll keep an eye on that.
I'm still amazed that New England could come away with the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Here's Brees over the middle. Pass is broken up by Godfrey as he got in front of Graham. And there is no flag.
Joe, you talked about the record again that Drew Brees just had. And for those that saw the Monday night game, as soon as Drew Brees had the completion for the touchdown to Sproles, and he's getting picked up by Carl Nicks, and I said, how did they know? How did they know how many yards you needed in order to set the record? And I guess Chase Daniels as the backup quarterback, they kept asking him between every series, and so they knew exactly how many yards he needed to pick up that record.
Here's one that is incomplete on third down, trying to set up a screen from Pierre Thomas. It's fourth down, and Casey will come onto the field. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Immediately lifted him into the air. And then what Drew Brees did after the game in the locker room, which was shown, I thought let everybody in maybe didn't know what kind of a guy Drew Brees really is. He is a special person and has meant a lot to this community, and he proved it with that emotional post-game speech after breaking the record. Casey's had a great year. Set a franchise scoring record with now 141 points. Back to a 7-point game in New Orleans. Drew Brees has already thrown for 140 yards. He's got a touchdown, an interception. It's a 7-point game. And the Panthers about to go back on offense in this battle in the NFC South. 17-7 is the 49ers score as they lead at St. Louis, trying to wrap up the number 2 seed. And Morstead with his second touchback of the game. Now Tom Brady has gone over the 5,000-yard mark in their game. We just got the update from Kurt. In their game against Buffalo, there are a lot of things to say. First of all, Brees is the first guy to go over 5,000 2 times in his career. But I know Dan Marino was your favorite as a kid watching the NFL, and people forget that was Marino's second season in the NFL.
Yeah, I watched every bit of it. You know, 48 touchdown passes that season, and they went 14-2. And knowing what it's like to play as a young quarterback, that's good stuff.
Newton finds Stewart, and Stewart's got a Panthers first down.
And that's really why I've been so impressed with Cam Newton, Joe. I mean, we've seen a lot more quarterbacks come in as rookies and have good years. What this guy's done to throw for 4,000 yards, which is what he will likely do by the end of this game, is really impressive no matter who you are.
Pass is caught by Shockey, and that's good for 6. No flag, more shoving after the play as he shoved Roman Harper, his former teammate. And that'll take us to the 2-minute warning. And there's that little shove. No flag. Panthers with it down 7, 2 minutes left. 2nd down and 4 with 2 minutes left here in New Orleans. Saints up 17-10, trying to go undefeated at home. First time in franchise history. Out of the shotgun. Newton flushed out to his right and now finds an open receiver. What a catch.
Yeah.
What a catch by Steve Smith.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. And a nice job again of Cam Newton looking to throw the ball when he comes out. But you see that ball's coming in pretty good. And to be able to snatch it like Steve Smith does along that sideline, it got up on him in a hurry. That's not an easy play to make at all.
That now gives Steve Smith the record most catches in franchise history. And that was not easy. That was catch number 697.
And you could tell that it got on him, because otherwise you'd have your hands the other way. You know, I mean, he came at it kind of awkwardly, which made for a more difficult catch, but he hauled it in nonetheless.
Blitz coming from the Saints. Pass caught by LaFell. And he reached back to grab it in front of Tracy Porter. A completion of 14 yards, and now here comes Carolina.
You know, that's we've talked about it. This was some of the concerns coming into the league for Cam Newton, was his accuracy, but he's gotten better, as I said, and that will continue to get better. But a nice completion there and a good job by LaFell to make that catch.
From the 29, they hand off to Stewart. Look at that room to run. A touchdown from Jonathan Stewart. 29 yards and touchdown number 4 for number 28.
Just a lot of gashes within this defense that we've seen throughout this first half. This time Travell Wharton again is going to pull. He kicks out, blocked down here. You see the lane that Stewart has to run. There's no linebacker in the middle. Nobody there, not touched until he's in the end zone.
Remember, this is a defense that does not have Vilma, Jonathan Vilma, their usual middle linebacker, and he is out. They're resting him. He missed 3 games, knee surgery earlier in the year. Dunbar started this game in the middle, but there was nobody there on that run. For Carolina, their 26th rushing touchdown and a tie game. That 2012, and the other guys are kicked back, watching football. While Kurt's doing all the game breaks. 1:18 left after that 1-minute 24-second drive that covered 80 yards. And whether this game turns out to be meaningless or not, it's not going to be meaningless for Greg Williams and his defense, trying to slow down the Carolina offense as they've had their way at times, including that last touchdown run by Stewart, 29 yards. Here's Sproles out near the 18. Let's go down to the field and Pam Oliver.
Well, Joe, defensive coordinator Greg Williams is not happy with what he's seeing from a mental standpoint from his team. He has been marching up and down the sideline this entire game. He thinks that group does not have his head in the game, and he has expressed that very, very clearly. Back to you.
Carolina with 236 yards of offense against Greg Williams' defense, which comes in ranked overall 26th in the NFL.
Well, it's been a tough year for Greg Williams. There's no question about that. A lot of the things that they had done a few years ago with takeaways just haven't happened for them this year.
What a good play made by Greg Hardy as he brings Darren Sproles to the ground, a loss of 5.
You know, when you think about it, if you're Sean Payton and you want to get into this game, you want to play hard, you want to, some of those records are important. They're important for a lot of people. It's important for this organization, and the great things that they've done here. But, you come out offensively, you're doing some good things, you get some points. But if your defense doesn't allow you to maintain those leads, then you find yourself having to play more guys for longer periods than you'd really want to. I don't think Sean Payton came into this game anticipating Drew Brees playing the entire 60-minute ball game. I don't think he thought that Darren Sproles would do that. Maybe they won't. But as long as this game's tight, and then the San Francisco game, if that game's tight, he really has no other alternative.
That San Francisco game may not be tight here in a hurry. Up by 10 and approaching the red zone in St. Louis. There's Colston, and he goes down right at the marker. Depends on the spot. 2 timeouts left and just inches short, so 3rd down. Brees will pick it up and then spend a timeout, I would imagine, and they do. As we go back and look at their first matchup in Week 5. And it was a high-scoring game, and maybe some of the scuffling has carried over into this one. Panthers pulled ahead in that 4th quarter, but Drew Brees led a comeback that ended with that 6-yard touchdown pass to Thomas with 50 seconds left, and it was a New Orleans win 30-27 in Charlotte.
Well, that was another one of those games for Carolina that they've had a number of them this year. They've been in a lot of close games. They've just failed to win most of them. In fact, in games 7 points or less, they're just 1-5. But they'll learn to win those games like New Orleans has been able to do now for a number of years.
On 1st down, Brees scans the field and finds Jimmy Graham. And his top target has enough for a 1st down. Clock continues to wind. 1 timeout left for the Saints. This one for Graham, and now we'll see if they spend a timeout. They do, with 17, 16, 15 seconds left. Brees was coming off the field, and a few more seconds ticked off after he had called a timeout. This one good for 15 to Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, usually that only happens when you're on the road. It's not supposed to happen when you're playing at home. But you're right. I thought he called timeout and they lost. They put 1 back on, it looked like. I thought they took a couple of seconds off the clock after the timeout was called by Brees.
So he's back now with no timeout, 16 seconds left. Jimmy Graham came in needing 68 yards for a new record for receiving yardage by tight end, but trailing Rob Gronkowski of the Patriots by 6 yards with a year he's had in New England.
Saw Cam Newton there. He had said that he planned on watching Drew Brees and seeing if he could pick up anything that would carry over into next year.
Down the sideline, open for the touchdown. Colston, his second of the game. And at the end of the half, 42 yards from Drew Brees. How can that happen?
Well, they got lazy on the outside, and Marcus Colston, I couldn't tell who the defender was, but he was able to get in behind, and the pump fake here, just all that does is continue to allow him then to get in behind. Sherrod Martin. I was looking for the corner, and it was Sherrod Martin who at safety was playing shallow and not expecting Brees to come his direction because Brees was looking the other way or feeling that he could react in time to get back and make a play on that. But that's just poor defensive play there by the safety, Sherrod Martin.
Martin gives it up. Colston's got his second. Drew Brees has got a 42-yard touchdown pass at the end of the first half. And just like that, in what is definitely a shootout, it's 24-17 with 7 seconds left here in New Orleans. And you see the reaction between Brees and Colston. That's the good. On the other side, wondering how that can happen. Members of the secondary. Colston 6 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Brees is only 51 yards shy of his 13th 300-yard game of the season.
Well, there's a lot of plays that the Saints are able to apply to a defense that makes it really, really hard to match up and slow them down, especially when you got a quarterback who's as precise and as patient as Drew Brees is. That last play was not one of them. You know, Sean McDermott as defensive coordinator has got to be fuming over that one because you've got a good coverage called. You know the situation, no timeouts. Don't let them beat you deep. Keep them in bounds. And then you got Marcus Colston going right in behind the safety.
Look at that day already for a half of football, and the Saints have 360 yards they've put up in this half.
What record is Colston coming up with?
Yeah. Well, he's over 1,000 yards for the season. We'll have one more snap and then be at the half in a 7-point game. Cam Newton taking it all in. I thought it was interesting what he told you, that he'll stop working out once the Super Bowl is over, because to him that's the full season.
Well, yeah, and he said he did that in college too. When they didn't make it to the championship game, he trained right up and through the national championship game. I just was wondering, I said, who's going to be out there catching passes for you? I can assure you there's not going to be anybody else training through the Super Bowl.
It's a 7-point game at the half. And these two teams have combined for 595 yards of total offense. 42 of them on this throw to Marcus Colston. With no timeouts remaining, Colston getting behind the defense. And it has the makings, if he stays in the game, of another huge day for Drew Brees. 24-17 at the half. We go to Kurt in Los Angeles right now for the Visa halftime. It has been a fun one so far in New Orleans. 7-point game as we are about to begin the second half. You can follow your favorite team all season long. Go to iTunes.com/NFL. And as we welcome you back inside under the roof here in New Orleans, we will see Cam Newton and the Panther offense, who gave up That late touchdown to Drew Brees, 42 yards with no timeouts remaining. That guy previously shown, Marcus Colston, got it. His second of the day. He's had a big afternoon already. Morstead drills another. And the Panthers will start at their 20. Down we go to Pam Oliver.
Well, Sean Payton certainly had a lot of mantras this week, and I asked him if he felt like they're living up to them, and he said yes, and we're going to go full steam ahead. He will make no substitutions in this game based on what's happening in San Francisco. Based on a little bit of information from Ron Rivera, he said that touchdown play to end the half by the Saints made me want to vomit. Back to you.
Oh, well, good. It is New Year's Day. From the 20. Out of the backfield, DeAngelo Williams, some room to run. And DeAngelo gets 9 over the left side. Herring was in on the stop. And a nice start, a 9-yard play. Porter was there as well for the Saints. And we look at the first half stats. How about 595 total yards? That's the second most by two teams this year for any half.
Well, Carolina had a nice half offensively. Of course, the one turnover down in the red zone, but compare that with the way that the Saints moved the ball, 360 yards. That's about as good as it gets.
First down for Carolina as Stewart picks it up. And Scott Shanley was in on the stop.
We were talking about Cam Newton, and when he talked about training, once this season ends right up until the Super Bowl, one of the things in talking with him yesterday was he said, and it happens to every rookie, they're just not ready for the length of the season, and it really hit him as well as he's spreading out and they're going to the Wildcat formation.
Done a lot of this today. DeAngelo Williams will take the snap. And he is out across the 35, picked up 3. Well, we know this, that if things stay as they are, the number 1 seed will be Green Bay, the number 2 seed will be San Francisco, the number 3 seed New Orleans, then the NFC East winner. That game tonight in the Meadowlands with the Cowboys and the Giants. The number 5 is Detroit. Atlanta, that's still a bit up in the air. Detroit's got their hands full with Matt Flynn and the Green Bay Packers down by 5 at Lambeau as they approach the end of the first half. Newton. That pass is incomplete. Forward pass incomplete for DeAngelo Williams.
Good pressure there off the edge by Cameron Jordan. He's been pretty active.
Now 3rd down and 7. Blitz coming. Newton is down and sacked by Martez Wilson.
Well, it's an all-out blitz by the Saints. You're going to see that they bring the linebackers, they bring Roman Harper, and Martez Wilson is the guy who's able to get Cam Newton to the ground. And that's the one guy who Greg Williams was really looking forward to watching play in this game today. He's getting the opportunity because of Velma being down, and they wanted to see what he could do, and that's a nice start for the rookie.
3rd round pick out of Illinois, his first sack. Sproles on the return. Out to the 39. And after that sack by Martez Wilson, Cam Newton grimacing as he left, and now getting looked at on the sideline for Carolina. Saints have it. Back to the field, Breeze up 7. Checking out the left hand of Cam Newton after the sack by Martez Wilson. He went down his full body weight on top of the left hand as Wilson celebrates his first sack. So we'll See if Newton continues in this game as Ivory carries it for New Orleans. And over the right side, Chris picks up 5. So they're still checking him out. And just to finish the story about the seating, as you watch once again all of his body weight come down to that left hand and left wrist. It's still up in the air. Atlanta plays later at home against Tampa Bay. If Atlanta wins and Detroit loses, and they're losing right now late in the first half at Green Bay, then those two flip-flop and Atlanta becomes the 5 seed. This pass is hauled in by Jimmy Graham with a one-handed right-handed catch, backing up behind Jordan Sen.
That's where that basketball background comes in pretty good. I didn't think there was any way he was going to be able to make that play. He runs a deep crossing route from the tight end position, and he's just able to go up and haul it in with one arm. You see, he's fending off Jordan Sen with his left hand, and goes up and then pulls it in with his right arm, and like you would if you were trying to box somebody out and go up for a rebound.
He's now 14 yards shy of breaking Kellen Winslow's record for yardage, receiving yardage by a tight end as Ivory runs into a wall, picks up a yard. But again, we don't know what Rob Gronkowski is doing for the New England Patriots as Derek Anderson, a former Pro Bowler with Cleveland, is starting to get loose on the sideline for Carolina.
Had a chance to sit down with Jimmy Graham on Friday and could not have come away more impressed with the young man. And I think the thing that has really been impressive is he wants to be a great player. He's well on his way.
Pass is caught. What a hit. But the pass is caught by Colston, drilled by Sherrod Martin, a gain of 16. You could hear that all the way up here.
Yeah, these receivers for the Saints, it's not an underrated group, but it's probably a much tougher group than what they get credited for, and taking some of the hits. Think back, Marcus Colston separated his shoulder against the Green Bay Packers in week 1. They thought he'd miss 4 games. He only missed 2 before he's back out there playing.
Breeze is looking for another touchdown. They're going to throw a flag for a hold as Meacham makes a catch, but there is a flag down.
Holding, offense, number 73. 10-yard penalty, repeat first down.
So that eliminates the touchdown as Jari Evans, the Pro Bowl guard, is flagged for holding.
A heck of a play there by Robert Meacham. It's not going to count, but the way that he went after that ball, there's actually pretty good coverage. Breeze put it in a perfect spot. But Jari Evans, the all-pro right guard, got called for the hold.
Takes the ball back to the 20, where it's first and goal.
Hey, B.
Now Breeze has to spin out of trouble and finds Graham, and Graham gets hit by Godfrey. No gain. Let's go back to the hold on Jari Evans.
Yeah, there's the hold right there. You see right in the middle of the screen there against Frank Kears. But what a nice job by Robert Meacham to be able to make that play. And we'll see now if that hold kept them from coming away with more points on this drive.
It's now second and goal. Breeze. There he is. That's a record. Graham has got a touchdown as he's into the end zone. 20 yards, and now he's past the great Kellen Winslow for receiving yardage by a tight end.
Well, apparently the offensive line and Carl Nix weren't checking with Chase Daniel on the sideline because he didn't get picked up the way Drew Brees did on Monday night. But great execution down the seam. Drew Brees knew immediately what he had, the matchup that he had against James Anderson, the linebacker, and great job, Jimmy Graham.
And he was a part of that drive. And made that tremendous catch. One arm to help set it up. Then the hold erased a touchdown, but it comes moments later. What a day for this Saints offense. 6-play, 61-yard drive put together by the Saints. Jimmy Graham, a big part of it, still 10 yards shy of the record. I misspoke. And you believe that this Saints offense is going to continue on into the fourth quarter the way they're going.
I do. But I do think they'll start subbing some guys at that point.
Here is a return by Pilaris, and he gets drilled at the 15-yard line. Meanwhile, Rob Gronkowski, you know, you can take Winslow's record and realize it's a 2 tight end race for that record among all these marks that are falling for the Saints offense. It's like Newton will return Gronkowski with 1,262 in his own chase. What a day in week 17. Good to see Cam Newton is okay to continue as the Panthers have it at their 15-yard line. Down now by 14 points. There's a day for Cam Newton, who sets up at the 15. And has his arm hit by the rookie Jordan as he got rid of it. Arm was going forward. It's an incomplete pass.
Yeah, as I said, Cameron Jordan, he's been pretty active back there, and he's been getting around Cam Newton throughout this ball game, and that time he got a hold of the right arm, which created that pass. I want to go back. You said that Jimmy Graham's 10 yards shy. Give Carl Nix his due. That's why he didn't run down there and pick him up. Maybe he will after he does break it.
Now Graham with 1,286 receiving yards this year. This one's going backward as the pass is caught by Stewart, and the play made by Robinson. A loss of 4. And all of a sudden the Panthers offense isn't able to chew up the yardage they were able to chew in the first half, as this Saints, I'm sure this defense heard plenty from Greg Williams at halftime.
Yeah, I think so. And I asked him the other day if he thought that this defense was a Super Bowl champion defense, and he believes that they are. One of the reasons is they've been so good on third down. This is only the third time Carolina's had a third down, and so far they've failed to convert.
Now third down and 14. All day for Newton, and now he tries to take off and is still up, but short of the first down as he's knocked down by Johnny Patrick. A gain of 7, and it's fourth down. And a better series this time for Greg Williams' group as they get a 3 and out.
No, it was a good job, and anytime you can get them to third down, which, as I said, the Saints really haven't been able to do that in this game, but when they have, they've been able to stop them and get off the field, and that's been the important thing.
So in this 14-point game, the Saints about to get it back. Sproles from inside the 35. Right up the gut. Inside the 45, and another good return by Darren Sproles, this time 25 yards after a 50-yard punt. And those feet churning up ground right up the gut of this punt cover team for Carolina. It's a 31-17 game. First down for the Saints with 7:10 left in the third quarter, and the ball at the 44-yard line of Carolina. No slowdown from this Saints offense.
Like 50, ready.
And what could be a record-setting day across the board. They've already done it for total offense. Here is Meacham. Man, they just keep chewing up yards. And Meacham is good for 16 out of the right hand of Drew Brees.
It's actually good coverage. You're going to see here at the top of the route the job that is done, and the timing by Drew Brees and Meacham. I mean, it's just, you can't defend this type of execution within the passing game. They do such a great job, one, because Drew Brees has such great confidence in all of these guys, And then also because he gets the ball out with such great timing that when they come out of their breaks, ball's halfway there, and it's hard then for a defensive back to be able to make a play.
So adding to his own record now, 13 300-yard passing days for Drew Brees as he's up over that threshold. Pierre Thomas, meanwhile, about the other quarterback, down to the field we go, and Pam Oliver.
Well, Joe, Cam Newton is often criticized for his body language, and we're seeing a little bit of it. It's pretty poor. He's really frustrated and walked away from his offensive huddle a time or two, bolted past his quarterback coach, and they give him a wide berth. And, you know, he's kind of hard to understand in that department, but he has really kind of been frustrated here on the sideline.
And he took that big hit, fronts that left hand. Here's a pass caught down to the 20. Jimmy Graham brought down by Jordan Sen. And it depends on the spot as to whether this is indeed the record that I was yelling about moments ago. But the way the Saints offense is going, that's 5 yards. He needed 4 yards to pass the record. The way the Saints offense is going, you name the record, it may fall here before the end of the day. So that's got him unofficially at 1,291, which is a new record. Here is Sproles, who is knocked out by Jonathan Nelson. And I would imagine, I don't want to speak for you, but when you look at what Jimmy Graham is doing,
go ahead.
Meacham, Henderson, Colston, Sproles, Ivory today, Thomas, he's got the record now for receiving yards by tight end. How does any defense focus on what could be a killer weapon for this team? They just go everywhere with it.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, each week it's different guys that step up and make plays.
Meanwhile, Darren Sproles needs 50 yards to set the all-time record for all-purpose yardage as Chris Ivory gets 8, brought down by Martin and Anderson.
You know, and that's one of the things that, you know, Chris Gamble has throughout this season typically gone with the team's best receiver. And, you know, as Ron Rivera said yesterday, we don't know who that might be. You know, of course, Jimmy Graham's our leading receiver, but they got so many different guys. We've seen Marcus Colston. We've seen Robert Meacham, Devery Henderson. There is no one guy.
Here is an end around to Henderson. Looking for the end zone, and he's brought down just short. R.J. Stanford on the tackle, and he stopped. A rushing touchdown for Devery Henderson.
He had a chance, and, you know, it looked like Devery Henderson might have been able to commit himself a little bit more and pick that up, but, you know, they're able to hold him shy. You know, you think about it, Joe, about what's going to happen with the 5 and 6 seed, depending on the Detroit game and then Atlanta. Atlanta, as we just saw last Monday night, they don't want to come back here against New Orleans, and I don't think Detroit does either. That's huge. Not that going to New York or going to Dallas is going to be easy, but that's huge on who has to come play these Saints.
Brees keeps it, drops it off for the touchdown to Collins. His second receiving touchdown of the season. And there's just too many ways Drew Brees can go.
Yeah, when you were naming all those weapons, I couldn't believe you left out Jed Collins.
My bad. So they get the fullback, who now has 4 touchdowns. Earlier in this game, Ivory became the 15th player to have a touchdown for the Saints this season when he rushed it in from 35 yards out.
I've never played on an offense that was this good. I've played on some good ones, and when you're rolling, it is a lot of fun. These guys are having a ball.
Brees now has hit 8 different receivers. This game is getting out of reach. Just about all the records have fallen. Will this top offense continue today for the Saints? Up 21. Jimmy Graham gets congratulations. His record-setting season, but he still has to fend off Gronkowski of the New England Patriots. He's had a big day, and a lot of it's come lately. Jimmy Graham now with 79 yards on the afternoon. He came in actually behind Gronkowski of New England by 6 yards. Carolina will have it at the 20. We will take a look at what's coming up in the second half of our doubleheader. The Buccaneers at the Falcons, Seahawks, and Cardinals. And as Troy was alluding to, that Falcons game still has some serious significance is that number 5 and 6 seed is still up in the air. We know that it's going to be those two teams. And then you've got the winner of the NFC East, either Dallas or the Giants, depending on what happens tonight.
If you're the 5 and 6 seed, if you had your choice of where you could go play, New Orleans would be the last place you'd pick.
Here's Stewart. Picks up 4. Next Sunday, we know at Fox that we will be either in Dallas or New York. The question is, who do they play? And then, consequently, who plays here at New England against Greg Williams' team, barring a big comeback in St. Louis by the Rams to beat the 49ers, which they're trailing by 10, the Rams are, with 2.5 to go, third quarter, and the 49ers are in the red zone in St. Louis. Newton throws and completes to LaFell. And Brandon LaFell has got a first down. 13-yard completion from Cam Newton.
Yeah, that ball had some, as Collinsworth would say, some hum baby on it. You know, I mean, he had some arm strength on that one and was very confident as to where he was going with it. No one's ever questioned what kind of arm that he has. And you know, I think looking at Carolina, certainly they're in fine shape at running back, offensive line good. I think they need to bring in a real playmaker, whether that's another wide receiver to complement Steve Smith or another big-time tight end.
Cam Newton now over 4,000 yards passing as he keeps it here, faked it to Stewart, and picks up 5. So he's the first player all time with 4,000 plus passing yards, 500 plus rushing yards in a single season. That's not rookie. That's first player all time.
Well, and you think about a guy like Randall Cunningham, you know, I mean, yardage wise, he would come up with that, or Michael Vick. Just, you know, Vick certainly can do it, but back in the day, 4,000 yards, guys just weren't throwing for that kind of yardage for the most part, and now we're seeing it all the time.
He also has 35 total touchdowns between throwing it and running it. As Stewart carries it, picks up 3. You can get coverage of every NFL game on NFL Mobile. Call ** NFL to get NFL action right on your phone.
You know, in visiting with Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, you know, he said right from the start of the meeting on Friday, he said, hey, I was wrong about this kid, Cam Newton. You know, I mean, he's doing things that I just never anticipated. I'll admit it as well. From what little I had seen of him in college, I didn't see it translating, certainly not in the first year. And I think he's made a lot of people believers in what he's able to do now.
He gets outside the pocket and throws a fastball for Shockey, incomplete. Broken up by Harper.
Sorry, Shockey's got to help him out a little bit there. Shockey got to the point, and then he just kind of stopped, and you know, he's got to come back to the ball. And I think if he does that, then he's got at least a chance to get the completion. It's a scramble drill at this point, but you know, he just stayed put, and so Roman Harper makes the play. But Shockey certainly could have helped out his quarterback.
Meanwhile, it's 4th down, and Darren Sproles, this may be the only record left to be set here today. Sproles is 50 all-purpose yards away from a new NFL record. And he will pick up some of that right here as he is flipped out across the 30. 14-yard return. So now 36 yards shy of that mark, and welcome inside our broadcast booth. We didn't know what kind of a game it would be like coming in, how long the top offense would continue for the Saints. I look down there, they're still out there on the field, and this has become a machine here since 2006 with the Saints.
It really has been special. I mean, a lot of people have heard the story over and over, but you know, Drew Brees had one team to go play for, you know, and it was the New Orleans Saints. And you know, what a job that he has done. I've got to believe that if they get this into the 4th quarter, that he's going to be done along with Darren Sproles.
And Sproles is now over the right side, and he picks up 7. Anderson on the stop. Let's go for a game break. Here's Kurt.
Well, in a record-setting year for offenses, Jared Allen might break Michael Strahan's sack mark. This is 3.5 sack. How do you say it? He's got 3.5 today, 22 on the season. Of course, Strahan has the all-time single-season record with 22.5. and there's still 4 minutes to go in the third quarter of their game against Chicago. Joe, Troy, and Pam.
How many does he need?
He needs half to tie and 1 to win. That mark. How about that? Here's Sproles. They're going to be feeding him. He's out to the 45, and he just runs over Jordan Sen.
Oh, my God. Look at this. Oh, I mean, that's being the hitter right there if you're Darren Sproles. And, I mean, dynamite comes in small packages, and that's the way to finish a run.
Wow, 5'6", 190. Just flattened. 5'11", 224. Back after this from your local Fox station. Into the fourth we go. There is the score from St. Louis, now 27-10. 49ers on top. So it appears this will just be a day to break records for the New Orleans Saints. And now the last one there is Darren Sproles needing 23 more yards in that all-purpose category to set a new record, which would break the previous record held by Derek Mason. The 2000 Tennessee Titans with 2,690. So they're just going to keep feeding him. And he picks up over the left side 9 yards. Anderson on the tackle.
You know, it's easy for us to go through what all the scenarios are for these records, but Chase Daniel, he's the guy who kind of lets everybody know there for the New Orleans Saints, and you can bet that he has notified a number of people, and you see him checking out what the play would be as he holds the helmet to his ear. But Drew Brees calls him Stat Man because anything that Drew Brees wants to know, Chase Daniels has it ready and available.
Here he is again, leading 14 right now. He just picks up 2 and a first down. And there's Chase. Hopefully he's better at it than I was earlier in this game, screaming about Graham, but he eventually said it, and this is the only one left. And then, for those who don't know, Chase Daniel had one of the better collegiate careers while doing so out of Texas at Missouri than a lot of quarterbacks over the past 5-6 years.
Well, I asked Sean Payton if he thought that he could go on and be a starter in this league. He said, well, you know, time will tell, but I kind of like his role where he's at right now.
Just sit over here. Add up the stats. Here's one wide open for Devery Henderson. And again, a Saints receiver gets behind the secondary of the Carolina Panthers, 31 yards.
Just a busted coverage. Devery Henderson goes by Chris Gamble. Gamble acted as though he thought he was going to have help over the top, but there was nobody there. And, you know, if Brees makes a better throw here, this is a walk-in for a touchdown.
Saints now are over 500 yards on the day, doing that for the 5th time this year.
I can't believe Drew would throw such a horrible pass.
Right. Here is the tight end Higgins, and now he has his first catch down inside the 10.
I mean, this really is remarkable. I don't care who you're playing against. If you're playing against an NFL defense, it's not easy to do. And here we are with 12.5 minutes to play in the fourth quarter, and the Saints have 530 yards of offense. I mean, that is unheard of.
Sproles, by the way, needs 12 yards. The ball is inside the 10. Brees looks his way. Catch is made for the touchdown.
Guy's really something else. You know, I mean, you think about as we've talked about, Joe, the guys that they have. Jimmy Graham is a guy who's a difference maker because of the matchup problems. The other guy is this one right here, Darren Sproles. I mean, how do you cover him? You can't put linebackers on him. You almost have to have defensive backs, and then it creates a lot of other problems in other areas of your defense. And you know, Jimmy Graham coming on and then him as a free agent really has exploded this offense.
He is doing what Reggie Bush was supposed to do in this offense, doing it at a higher level while Reggie has a breakout year in Miami. 45-17 Saints. Now 45-17 game, 28-point game. As you look at the latest scoring drive put together by Drew Brees, what do you think? I mean, heck, halfway through the season, 3/4 of the way through the season, the MVP award was going to be handed to Aaron Rodgers. What Drew Brees is doing here with the Saints. Who's your MVP?
Well, say, because as we know, he broke Dan Marino's 27-year-old record. I just can't imagine that record being broken. He's going to throw for 5,500 yards this year. That I believe Rodgers and Brees should be co-MVPs of this league.
Here is D'Angelo Williams. And a pass out of the backfield to D'Angelo picks up 12 yards and a first down.
You know, in a lot of ways, Joe, that's a real slight to Tom Brady, too. I mean, if the truth be told, all three of those guys should be MVPs. Tom Brady has single-handedly carried that New England team. Their defense is awful. And he and Gronkowski and Wes Welker, that's the reason that team will likely have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But to me, it would be hard. I think that at least those two, and I would think it'd be unfair if all three made it.
Here's an incompletion on 1st and 10. Meanwhile, we keep talking about the Graham record receiving yards by a tight end. He is only 12 yards ahead of Gronkowski of New England as they're playing at home against Buffalo. So even though he breaks the record today of Kellen Winslow, he may not end the season with the record if Gronkowski has another couple catches for the Patriots if Graham doesn't do anything else.
Yeah, and we thought that might be the case with Drew Brees, but that doesn't look like that'll happen.
Handoff to D'Angelo Williams. And he gets hit, and that'll draw a flag. Got hit out of bounds, and that was Martez Wilson. That'll be 15 yards and the first down.
Pretty easy call to make right there. I mean, you're going to see D'Angelo Williams is well out of bounds, but Martez Wilson comes in and blows him up.
This defense, number 95. 15-yard penalty from the end of the run. First down.
So that takes the ball all the way out to the 48-yard line, and there's that extra hit. And then that poor woman along the sideline got knocked over as well. We will give you a game break after this play, barring something spectacular on 1st and 10 from the Panthers. Blitz coming from the Saints. Newton floats it for Shockey out of his reach. And now a game break. Here's Kurt.
Well, as you mentioned, Jimmy Graham broke the record. Rob Gronkowski now 13 yards behind him. More importantly, his 17-yard score and a 2-point conversion gave New England its lead for the first time today. 28-21. They're on top of Buffalo. A win by the Patriots, and they clinched that #1 seed in the AFC. Joe, Troy, and Pam.
And it's hard to remember the start the Buffalo Bills had, and now as they will finish this season, there are the up-to-date numbers, 12 yards separating these two.
Jimmy Graham told me the other day he wasn't so much worried about the record. He just wanted to have more yards than Rob Gronkowski.
He may have to go back to work then. As Newton surveys the field, now takes off. Eventually gets spun down by Tom Johnson. A gain of 4.
You know, we saw Jeremy Shockey on that previous play when Cam Newton was unable to get the ball into his hands. But I know in visiting with Jimmy Graham, he talked about what a positive influence Jeremy Shockey was on him last year when they were teammates here in New Orleans. That Shockey really kind of took him under his wing and taught him how to be a pro, you know, and the things that he needed to do to get better. I just don't know that anybody anticipated that he would get this good that quick.
Two Miami Hurricanes on this New Orleans roster a year ago. Newton finds Smith, and what a nice open field tackle made by Robinson. A gain of just 1. And that brings up 4th down.
Patrick Robinson, a young defensive back who probably has been the most improved player on that defensive side of the ball, and especially here in recent weeks. He's received a couple of game balls here over the last 3 games or so because of his play.
It's like Chase Daniel may get a shot here today, and Darren Sproles can break the all-purpose yardage record right now. He needs 3 to do it. Baker gives him a chance. And he will not. Into the end zone and out to the 20. So it's going to have to come on offense if it's going to come here momentarily. And it may have to come out of the right hand of Chase Daniel. He takes over. 9.5 to go in the game, up by 28. There's the day for Drew Brees, and if this is the end of his afternoon and regular season, 5,476 passing yards, 46 passing touchdowns, and he ended this day today against the Panthers with 17 straight completions. Daniel takes over, and he now hands to Sproles, who's got the all-purpose yardage record. So another one falls, and that may be it for number 43 for the day.
You know, you talked about Drew Brees there, Joe, and you know, a guy, as we all know, I mean, undersized and wanted to go on to play for the University of Texas, couldn't get a scholarship, had to go to Purdue. And you'd think with all that he has accomplished that some of the things that motivated him would be gone. And I asked him just the other day, I said, "You're still not carrying around that chip on your shoulder, are you?" And he said, "Oh yeah, oh yeah."
Daniel keeps it, drops it off to Jimmy Graham still in this game, and he hops out with a first down.
You know, one of the things, though, if you look at this game, Sean Payton wanted to come in. He wanted to keep the momentum going that they had been able to establish over the last 2 months. He wanted his guys to come in and play well, and quite honestly, some of those records were really, really important to him, and rightfully so. And they've been able to do that, and most importantly, they've been able to do it and stay healthy. I think looking at the NFC right now, this team right now is the best team in the NFC. I think they've surpassed Green Bay here over the last few weeks.
Here's Ivory, bounces away from tacklers and now turns it into a positive run of 4 yards. Godfrey on the stop.
You know, the Packers right now are resting some players, and I don't disagree with that either. But I think since the Kansas City game, obviously frustrating when they lost that, but just sizing these two teams up, where we are right now, it sure seems to me that the New Orleans Saints are playing better football than anyone else in the conference.
They're on their way to their 8th straight win. Haven't lost since the end of October. Ivory is out to the 39. Connor on the tackle. Middle linebacker, a gain of 3. Second half of our doubleheader today is this: Buccaneers at Falcons, with maybe something on the line there depending on what happens with the Detroit Lions. And then the Seahawks at the Cardinals. That's the second half of our doubleheader day here in Week 17, and there may be something on the line as Green Bay has just gone in front of Detroit. Pass is caught by Collins. And on third down, the fullback is brought down short of first down yardage by Anderson. Nice tackle. It's fourth down.
You see Chase Daniel there, and I know in visiting with Sean Payton, he said, well, he's built a lot like Drew Brees. He's a little bit more mobile than Drew Brees, and said, but I like to kid with him and tell him the only reason we keep him around on a roster is because he makes Drew Brees look tall. So, but as you said, I mean, he had a heck of a high school career, an excellent collegiate career, and my guess is that when given the opportunity, he's going to do just fine here in the NFL.
They are chanting "Who Dat" here in New Orleans. With the Saints up 28. Timeout, Saints. Here, a doubleheader day with the NFL on Fox. And now on fourth down, Daniel goes under center.
Offense, number 10. 5-yard penalty.
Got him with the
Fourth
head
down.
bob. So that eliminates any chances of the fake or going for it on fourth down. They tried to draw Carolina offside, and Ed Hockley threw the flag because Daniel did too much with that head bob, and so it's 4th and 6 and a punt coming from Morstead with Edwards waiting for him.
Yeah, it looked like he was able to draw Carolina off sides, but as you said, they called Daniel with the head bob, but I don't know how you inflect your voice with not moving your head.
This is a booming punt that goes into the end zone. A flag is down as Morstead let it fly. And it's against the Saints. Ed Hockley goes toward the Carolina sideline to determine if they want to repunt or just tack it on.
Holding offense by New Orleans, number 47. A 10-yard penalty will be enforced from the 20-yard line because the end of the play was a touchback. Carolina ball, first down.
They call it against Drescher, the center, the long snapper who dragged down the rusher as Morstead unleashed that 64-yard punt.
Now you look at Carolina now offensively, and it's been a struggle here in this second half, and a big reason for that has been because they've gotten behind by so many points. They were running the ball very well there in the first half. They have 165 yards rushing, but they just haven't been able to run the ball as much here in this second half, and they're throwing it, and New Orleans knows that. They're getting after Cam Newton, and they're just not giving up anything in the passing game.
Been a better half this second half for the Saints defense. Extra men on the rush. Wide open is Smith. And Steve Smith lost the football. Eventually recovered by Tracy Porter. And the Saints take over at their own 26. Two officials have it marked back at the 26. That ball came out, but the officials are huddling up and they're determining whether or not this was a fumble. Abdul Qaddus knocked it out. It definitely came out.
The ruling on the field is that the receiver was down before he fumbled the ball. Carolina's ball, first down.
And that'll be challenged, and it'll come New Orleans way as that ball came out before the knees went down.
Well, Sean Payton was already out to the numbers, standing right next to the official, so as soon as the ruling was made that he was down,
Was challenging on the rule.
he just basically handed him the flag.
The runner was down by contact.
Well, they showed it on the replay board.
That's why Sean's laughing about it. He said, did you not just see it on the big screen?
While the officials were huddling, that ball's definitely out. New Orleans will get this call and take over up by 28. Ruling on the field was that there was no fumble. Here's the call.
The receiver fumbled the ball before it came loose. And there was a clear recovery by New Orleans at the 31-yard line. Therefore, it is New Orleans ball at the 31-yard line, first and 10. No timeouts are charged. The clock should read 6:12. 6:12 on the clock. First down.
Ball clearly out, and this Saints defense, which doesn't get a lot of takeaways, gets one here after it was finally recovered by Tracy Porter.
Well, you said it. I mean, that's the difference in this defense compared to the one a couple of years ago that was able to win the Super Bowls. They've just not had the takeaways. If they start to create those, and those typically come in bunches, but if they hit the postseason and they're able to start giving more opportunities to their offense, this is going to be a tough team to beat.
Well, while Chase Daniels in the huddle realizes that tight end receiving yards record does not belong to Jimmy Graham. Rob Gronkowski's now gone ahead of him by 2 yards. Graham is not on the field. From the 31, hand off to Ivory. Ivory plows forward to the 38.
Well, maybe Drew Brees is maybe he's playing Statman role right now, and he can let everybody know.
This month, FX and Fox are your home for exciting live UFC action with more than 10 epic fights on 3 incredible nights featuring some of the sport's best up-and-coming fighters as well as title contenders looking to earn their shot at the belt and their place in history. Month of outstanding live UFC action begins on Saturday, January 14th on FX.
Ready, set.
On second down, here's Ivory. First down and more. Out to the 48. Presley on the stop, a gain of 9.
Well, that offensive line, they just come off the ball and just maul people right in the middle of the defense and give Chris Ivory just a lot of options to go with that run.
Presley, who was there for the tackle, is down, and they have to call timeout, come on the field and give him a look.
You know, we talk about the offensive lines, and you know, Ron Rivera for Carolina, he knew that if you're going to pick up a franchise quarterback in Cam Newton, then you better have a good offensive line. They had that in place, and that's maybe the thing that gets overlooked a little bit in New Orleans because of so much explosiveness on the outside and the skill players that they have and the record-setting year that Drew Brees has had. This offensive line, of course, they got recognized by their peers, not only by the fans and the coaches, but also by fellow players by voting 3 of these offensive linemen into the Pro Bowl.
Presley able to walk off the playing field, get to the sideline, first down, Saints. We have 581 yards of offense today. Here's Ivory again. Trying to find somewhere to run, and he's dragged down, it looked like by his hair, by James Anderson. A gain of just 2.
I couldn't tell if it was his hair or his jersey. It looks like it might have been the hair, and that's legal for those that are wondering. You know, if you want the locks, you got to be prepared to have it pulled.
Anderson using the hair of Chris Ivory to bring him down, to bring up second down and 8.
5-7. Ready, set.
And Chase Daniels doing a lot of handing off, and it's Ivory good for another first down with a run of 9 yards.
What a luxury to have for the Saints when you can lose a guy like Mark Ingram. I talked a little bit about it earlier about whether Mark Ingram was scheduled to play today, and then in practice he re-aggravated that toe. Now Jay Glazer came out on the pregame show and said that he may in fact be having surgery this week, and if that were the case, I would assume he's out then through the postseason. But to lose a guy of that talent and still run the ball with these others they have is nice.
Ivory just does not go down easily over the left side. Chris picks up 4. Anderson on the tackle. Again, Graham, who was worried about Gronkowski of the New England Patriots, right now is trailing Gronkowski in receiving yards after being the first to break the record by Kellen Winslow. He may not end up with the record.
We spent a lot of time obviously talking about the Saints. Carolina, to go back to what I mentioned earlier, I really think Ron Rivera has done an outstanding job with this team, and they have a lot to be proud of the way they finished the second half of this year, and a lot to build on going forward.
Here's Ivory over the right side. Gets 3 yards. Anderson on the tackle again. He's been busy. And this was a team that has lost 17 players to injured reserve this year. They lost linebackers John Beeson and Thomas Davis the first 2 weeks of the season. And yet they've been able to build here down the stretch and should have a lot to feel good about heading into the offseason.
Yeah, I talked about what I think they needed on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, they need they're going to get their linebackers back. They just need a dominant pass rusher that strikes fear in these teams that are throwing the ball the way they are.
Daniel with a throw, and that's Graham. And Graham, at last report, with what Gronkowski is doing, moves ahead of the New England tight end. So they may be aware of it.
Yeah, old stat man on the sideline is getting them informed. And Jimmy Graham was on the sideline and he had his helmet on and all buckled up, and you could tell that he didn't think his day was over. He was ready and anxious to get back out there on the field. And I don't know, I joke about it, I don't know if he knows or not, but I think he knew, based on the conversation with him on Friday, that coming out of this and having more yards than Rob Gronkowski was going to be tough, just because of the numbers that guy's been putting up all year.
Here's Ivory again. Lowers his shoulder into Chris Gamble. and a pickup of 7. Here it is, up to the second. 2 minutes left in New Orleans. Minutes left. 2nd down and 3 for the Saints. They are going to go into kneel down mode. Well, I have completely worn out. The guys up here in the booth who have been handing me stats, namely Ed Sfida, Philadelphia's own, who's been trying to track all these records that have been falling seemingly by the second. Dave Schwalbe, our spotter, the producer of today's game. Richie Zients, the director, is Rich Russo. Steve Horn, our editorial consultant. Associate directors are Jake Jolivet and Rich Gross. The broadcast associates Bentley Elliott and Alex Olson. Technical producer is Dave Hill. Technical director is Colby Bourgeois. Studio show produced by Bill Richards, directed by Bob Levy, as we are now at 3rd down and 4, and now 4th down. As you look at New Orleans Saints, their first 8-0 record at home in team history, and how far will this season carry this Saints team?
Quite a statement here today by the New Orleans Saints, and this is exactly what Sean Payton wanted. Yeah, he wanted them to be healthy, but he really wanted to just continue to build on what they have been doing here over the last 7 ball games, and they have done that. So they'll likely line it back up next week and try to make a run for another Super Bowl title.
Well, these two teams are coming out onto the field, but this game's not over. That was 4th down with Daniel taking a knee. And so they turn it over on downs with 36 seconds left. That stops the clock. And the Panthers will have a 1st down with half a minute to go. And we will try to recap the records that have fallen. The only one that's still outstanding is Gronkowski and Graham. And who will end up with the record, but the record was broken by Jimmy Graham earlier in this game, a record held by the great Kellen Winslow, set back in 1980 with the Chargers. So for the Saints, it's on to the playoffs. It is still to be determined who they will play. Could be Detroit, could be Atlanta for the 3rd time this season. They're 2-0 against the Falcons. They beat them in overtime in Atlanta and took them apart here last week in New Orleans. We will send it to Kurt Menefee, and we look at the records that have fallen today. The all-purpose yardage record for Sproles, the tight end receiving yardage record for Graham, and this offense in general. What a year for the Saints.